Hi, this is Bob Sorrentino from Italian Roots and Genealogy, and I'm back today with Mary Gennusa Patterson. I interviewed her before on one of her fantastic books, of which she's done several, and also a poetry book. And now, Mary, you have a magazine that you've just put out, correct?
Yes, it's a magazine, and it's called Inspiration Magazine by Mary B. Gennusa Patterson. And in the magazine, there's a lot of my mother's Sicilian recipes that came from her that she cooked, and through the years, I picked up on them. There's also a recipe in here on how to make homemade pasta by hand. I don't have a machine. I don't even know how to use one. But this was my mother's and my father's recipe, and it's a step-by-step on how to do that. There's also all kinds of hints about cooking, like, for instance, when I boil water and I put pasta in and I use regular tap water. But if I'm doing any cooking, I actually use bottled water. I think it has a better flavor. Little hints like that I have done through the years. My magazine also has pictures of the artwork that I have done. And then there's pictures of my mother and father and myself coming to this country when I was a child. It has all kinds of stories. Oh, here's the picture of the eggplant. Can you see that?
Yeah, we were talking before about that. That tells you how to get the best eggplant, the male and the female, correct?
Yes, the male and the female is in there. The male has a little on the bottom, and it's straight, but the female is round. The male is always sweeter than the female, so that's the one you should pick. The smaller the eggplant, the better. Now, in this magazine, I have my mother's Sicilian recipe, which I cook all the time. Here's a picture of it. You can see it. And I can't tell you how many people enjoy my eggplant, my mother's eggplant. I bring it to all the parties. I bring it to all the meetings. I bring it to everyone that I can bring it to because it's so good. And then it tells you how to cook it, how to slice it, how to cook it, how to get the water out, all that. And then there's all kinds of recipes. Like, for instance, when I came to this country, my mother always made baked shells with the meat. When I first got married, my husband and I would go to a party, and I'm not sure exactly if it was a restaurant or a party, but they served shells filled with ricotta cheese. I never saw that. So I thought it would be fun to put this recipe in, which is delicious. It's not hard to make. It's very, very easy to do. And I thought it would be fun to share it with my people out there. And also another one is my mother's baked pasta with cauliflower. So easy to do. It's different. And it's got all those vegetables, the vegetable in it. So I think that's something that people would enjoy. I also have simple recipes like asparagus and eggs, peppers and eggs, potatoes and eggs, because that's what I grew up on.
Yeah, we did too.
There's a recipe in here for artichoke hearts. And then there's a picture of.
So I want to ask you though about, you had showed me earlier about the sausage. I guess you make it in wine, the sausage that you.
Oh yeah, red wine.
Yeah. I've never made it like that.
Yeah, and I'll tell you another thing that's really delicious is after the sausage is cooked, cut it into little pieces, put it, and then you put a little cheese on it. You can put an olive on it, stick a toothpick in it, and serve it as an hors d'oeuvre. It's also very good as a breakfast sausage instead of the regular breakfast sausage that you get. It's great for a party if you want to impress people. And it's so simple. All you do is put the sausage in a little bit of olive oil so it doesn't burn, red wine, and big pieces of garlic. Just put it in the pan and fry it. Make sure you take the skin and you puncture it a little bit so the juices come out and goes into the frying pan, and the juices gets on the skin, which makes it tastier. Very easy, fun to cook. Put it in a sandwich bun. Delicious. You don't have to have peppers or eggs sliced up in it. Just eat it as it is. Very good.
I'm gonna have to try that. And then you mentioned that you make your pasta, but you don't use a machine. So do you roll it out on
I
the
roll it
board?
out. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't do that.
Yeah.
I can't do
There's
it.
a picture of me. Okay. You can see it being, let's see.
Yeah.
You can see me rolling out the pasta. Now, I have some serious arthritis in my hand. So my second boy, who's a chef, he helps me with the kneading of it. Then once it's all ready, and there's all this instructions, once it's ready, I roll it out. I was teaching him how to roll out the pasta, and he has some trouble because it's a little bit of an art. It takes time. Now, my father, when he did it, his pasta was thin, and he used to say to me, Maria, fino, which meant very, very thin. The thinner you got it, the better it was. And when he got done, he had this big, huge, round pasta that was perfect. I've never been able to get mine as round as I'm perfect, but I have been able to get it fino, fine.
Yeah, and my uncle, the picture reminds me of my uncle, because my uncle used to make, the ravioli and stuff on the board. And I was always amazed at how he could get it so thin. So what's the secret? How do you get it that thin?
Just keep rolling it, and you just got to practice. You just have to practice. My son, who is a chef, helped me with the magazine because I'm like every cook in anyone's kitchen. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. You stir it, you cook it for so long. And when he was reading my recipes, he says, Mom, you can't do that. You have to do it individually, and you have to write down exactly what you. Jerry, I don't know how to cook. Okay, so he says, we'll do it together. So he and I got together with all these recipes, and every time I cooked something, he would write down the amount, or he would judge the amount that I used. So he was the one who actually salvaged the magazine, because if you've gotten it from me, it would have been a little this, a little of that. Tastes good, fine, it's perfect. But my son was the one who actually put the recipes together professionally so that someone could follow it.
And I went to cooking school in New York, and we were making pasta, and the chef was teaching us, wanted us to make the pasta in a bowl. And I said, no, you don't put the pasta you don't put the flour in a bowl. It doesn't work.
Now, when we were making this, my son and I, he says, well, Mom, instead of using that flour, you use this. I said, Joey, you don't understand. That's not the way my mother and father made it. I said, you can use any flour you want, but this is my mother and father's recipe. So it took a while for him to understand, because he's a professional and he's been trained and he went to school. But I was trying to explain to him, you have to do it the way my mother and father taught me. Now, another great recipe in here is brujol. And there's a story about the brujol in here, about my husband. And also, my pasta sauce is always made, when it's made with meat, I always put pork in it. Pork is very sweet, and it has a nice flavor. And when you chew on the pork after it's done, it's delicious. And here again, it's in this, in my recipe, in my magazine. Now, here's my son and I cooking. As you can see, we're singing. And what we were doing is we were in the kitchen cooking together, and we started singing one of Freddie Mercury's songs. And I hit this high note. He's got a beautiful voice. He's got his father's singing voice. I don't. But we were singing together, and I hit a high note, and he was so impressed that I could do that. And we both ended up laughing. So we had someone take a picture of us singing together while we're cooking.
So does he have a restaurant someplace, or what is?
I'm sorry, what, Bob?
I said, does he have a restaurant?
He works in a restaurant. No, he doesn't own one himself. It's owning a restaurant. We have been in the restaurant business for many, many years, and it takes your whole life.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to do that. He wants to be able to cook and enjoy and not worry about the rest of it, the rest of that goes with it. So he's working, and he's in the chef in Pasadena. He's working in this actually this beautiful. I'm sorry. He's working in a restaurant, and it's in a boat facility where the boats are parked there for it's the marina, beautiful
Oh,
marina,
nice.
and yeah, and what they do is they serve a different type of cuisine. They don't do Italian; they do different types of food, and Joey has learned a lot about that, but he's also taught them a lot about what he has learned in school and through me. And Joey has learned a lot of cooking through me because during COVID, that's all we did was cook and eat, like everyone.
You couldn't find yeast during COVID. I was going nuts trying to find yeast.
Oh, yeah. Well, we didn't have any trouble finding anything. The trouble was not eating it. And fortunately, it showed. That's okay. It was worth doing the magazine. And in the magazine, you're going to see many of my, I belong, and this is fun. I belong to the Sons and Daughters of Italy of Annapolis Lodge, and that's where I live. And here is a picture of the lodge, and they do a lot of cooking. And the lodge, after they pay all their expenses, all their profits go to charity. Wonderful, wonderful. And this is a lodge that's across the United States. Each area has they have their own lodge number. Very proud to be a part of that. I met a lot of wonderful Italian Sicilian people. I am just delighted to be a part of it. Now here's a picture of the church in Bisaquino, where I was born. That's in the center of the town. Center of the village. And here are some of my paintings that I have painted, that I've given as gifts. And let's see what else. I have jewelry that I have done, but I think mostly it's the recipes and the little bits of information I give cooking that I've learned through the years that I'm so proud to give to people to make and to follow as they're doing my recipes. Like I said, you can here's a picture. This is a picture I am very proud of. These are a picture of my sons. You see how they're all big?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're all Irish. And then there's little me right here in the center. Little me. But let me tell you, this little mama of theirs, when she gets mad, they back away.
Of course, yes.
But what had happened is my son, the chef, was wearing this shirt that says Sicily on it. And I said, Joey, where did you get that? He said, I got it online. I says, well, can you give me some more? He says, yeah. So he bought them for my older sons and for me, and that's when that picture was taken. Now, the picture next to it, this one right here, is the house I was born in, Bisaquino. That's the actual house that my father owned. My sisters and I are all born in. So let's see, what else is there? Oh, this right here on the bottom is the oldest olive tree in Sicily. And if you look very closely, these are my relatives that are still in Sicily, and then I email or Facebook them. Wonderful, wonderful people. Very proud. I'm very proud of the village that I came from, Bisaquino. It's actually south of Palermo, and it's right next to Corleone. Everyone knows Corleone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you get to Bisaquino, you can either go through Corleone or go around it to get to the village. Now, the village is called Bisaquino, and it's an Arabic name for village of water. In the center of the village, there is running water, and that's where it got its name. Here is a picture of me and my family when we came from Sicily. That's me right there on the bottom. My mother, my older sisters, and this is my father and my sister Terry. Now, my mother was actually born here in the States. My grandmother and grandfather went back and forth. And when my grandfather and grandmother were here in the States, my mother and her sister were born here in the States, which made them citizens automatically because they were born here. My grandparents took their daughters back to Sicily, and when my mother was about 16, she came back to this country with her father and her sister, and they worked. My grandfather worked on the Holland Tunnel, and my mother and my aunt worked in the garment district in New York. They were seamstresses. They saved the money and they sent it back to Sicily to support the family. So then after they were here for a few years, my mother knew, she knew the city pretty well, and she knew how difficult it was to live here. So when she went back to Sicily and married my father, they had an arranged marriage. My mother was an American citizen, so that was gold.
Mhm.
My father owned his own house that I showed you. That was his home. And he was a successful olive farmer. And that was how the family got together. My mother and father did not know each other until the night they got married. When my sister Terry, my oldest sister, was 16 and we were still in Sicily, she lost her citizenship papers because of her age, but the rest of us did not. My father insisted on bringing us to America, which is a story on my first book. The story is true, but the story around is fictional. We came to this country. My mother did not want to come. And my father said, well, put the girls to work. We'll save a lot of money and we'll come back. And he was afraid that his daughters are not married in their station. And that's very important, especially when you live in a small village. And my mother can sing, Franco, that's not going to happen. We will never come back. My father heard that there was gold in the streets, and today everyone's giving out everything anyways. So he brought us here to the States. And when we got here, we could never go back because couldn't afford to go back.
Mhm.
So we made our life in a little town in Connecticut where I grew up, and we never went back to Sicily. So when we came to this country, you'll see a picture of my sister, my oldest sister, who no longer was an American citizen, and she was on my father's passport. They came together, and they had to have a sponsor, which my uncle was already here in this country. He sponsored my father, and my sister. And this is a picture of us on our passport. We were also American citizens. So that's the story of me. Do you have any questions?
No, just a couple of interesting things. I have a cousin whose grandmother also came from Sicily, and similar picture. They had the whole family on the passport. It's so strange to see a picture like that and know that it was on a passport. Now you have to have everybody has to have their own. Even when we lived in England for a couple of years, and my son was he was a month old maybe when we went, and uh, he had to have his own passport picture. He couldn't be with us. He had to have a separate picture. The other thing is we, finally got our trip to Italy, and we drove from Palermo to Shaka. So we probably passed very close to the vicinity of where you're from, although we didn't stop there because I didn't know about it. But must have been on that road, yeah, from between Palermo and Shaka.
While we're talking, I thought of something that I thought was interesting, and I thought I'd like to tell you about it. When my magazine came out, and my son was working in this boatyard with a very nice restaurant. I mean, it has updated equipment. I mean, it was just beautiful. The food is very, very good. Well, I said to my son, I says, Joey, I made him buy it because this is a business. She doesn't get anything free. So I said to Joey, why don't you buy some of these magazines and bring it up to your work? And he says, yeah. And I said, well, yeah. I says, I mean, you're working with all these chefs. I said, I have a lot of information here about cooking. So he did. He brought it. And the owner, who happens to be, he's Russian, Ukrainian. I never did get a chance to ask him. He wasn't born here. He was born in this country. But he does have a lot of connections in both countries. So when Joey gave him the picture, and he came to the one about my father and my mother and us coming here to this country. He started to cry. And Joey was telling me this, and I said, oh my gosh, Joey. I says, when I put this pictures in this magazine, it never dawned on me that how it would affect a lot of people who have family over in Europe that are going through the stress of war. And I said, and these pictures of us coming to this country, and when there's so many people that have come to this country will see this picture. And I said, my gosh, I just never thought about that. But yes, when he saw these pictures of me and my family coming to this country, he cried. And I was very, very affected by it. And when I met him, of course, I didn't have time to talk to him because we were sitting there having dinner with my other sons. I was with my sons. And I didn't have time to talk to him. But yes, he did come over and said how much he enjoyed the magazine and how much he enjoyed all the tips that I gave about cooking Italian food or Sicilian food. So I just thought that was an interesting story, how a simple little magazine like mine could affect people and bring them back to some wonderful and yet horrible memories. And I hope the people who buy the magazine has more wonderful memories than sad memories.
Yeah, and we all have a similar story about that. I just switched my photo on my background because when we came back from Italy, my dad's first cousin, and that's a long story, and I've told it before, so I won't bore everybody again. But he sent me the photo of my grandmother and the back of the card with her handwriting, and she knew because of what she says in the card to my dear dad to always remind him of his dear daughter. She knew at that time she was never going to see her father again. And I think there's so many stories like that, that the people who came here, especially, in the early 1900s, they left everything behind, knew they were never going to see their families again. And the only means of communication back then was a postcard or a letter. There was no phone, no Zoom, that's for sure. So it's, when I hear the stories like that or see the photos like that, it's really, it's touching to me, and I think to other people, because they may not be lucky enough to have the picture that I had after 100 years from somebody in Italy. But that's what people did. They sent the postcard home. And to me, that was really amazing to see, to get this.
It really is. It just really is how a little story like this can affect someone. It can be heartwarming and it can be heartbreaking all at the same time. I have another story that I'd like to share with you. In the magazine, on the bottom, there's a picture of a still life. I did this still life in high school in art class. It's the very first oil painting I ever did. And I was really proud of it. And I think I got a B+ on it. I didn't get an A because obviously my first one wasn't perfect. But to me, it was perfect. So I brought it home, and it was sitting in my house. And my oldest sister, Terry, came to me and said, Mary, I have to have that painting. It was Terry. It's the first one I ever did. She badgered me. So I finally gave it to her. So after I graduated from high school, I was working hairdressing, and one of my customers was teaching. She was an artist, and she was teaching oil painting classes. So I joined her class. And the first one painting I ever did was this. So that's the second painting I ever did. Brought it home. Here again, my sister badgered me in having this painting. And says, Terry, finally gave it to her. So all these years, those two paintings were in her house. And of course, I saw them when I visited her. She was up in Massachusetts, and at that time that I would visit her, I'd be here down in Maryland. Those paintings were there all these years. She treasured them. A year and a half ago, she passed away, sadly, and I got my two paintings back. They didn't match my house. I had no place to put them. And So I brought him to my son's house and I put it in his kitchen. And the one that I put was a still life. And it's amazing how when you open up his front door, the still life is hanging between two large windows. And when you walk in and the sun comes through this, all you see is that painting. So all those years, I just felt like I did that painting, and its journey was to my sister for many, many, many years. And it ended up in my son's house, and it is beautiful because when you open up the door to his house and you look into his kitchen, that's all you see is this amazing, amazing bright painting that I did.
Oh,
so
great. Yeah.
That's another heartwarming, You have to have some warm stories in your life and not the sad one. But that's the one. And then this one right here, the bottom one, I did for my husband. I think I did it for his birthday. I did it quite a few years. That's also hanging in my son's house. All my old paintings look better in his house than they do in mine. So that's where they ended up. And I'm trying to think. Oh, and this is another thing that's interesting. My second book, okay, I designed the cover. My publisher said to me, Mary, she said, you're an artist. Can you draw a picture of a pair of scissors for a cover of your second novel? I tried. I'm good at oil painting, but I'm not good at sketching. I should have taken lessons because it would have made my oil painting easier, but I never did. I never had the time because I got married and I raised my sons and all that. So when she asked me to do this, I thought, boy, that's going to be a beauty. So I went around my house and I found these old scissors. Now, I don't remember if my mother gave them to me or if I bought them, but if you can look at them closely, they're all kind of beat up.
Mm-hmm.
So you can tell that they've been used. Okay. Now, this pair of scissors is the kind of scissors that would be used in a factory, in a clothes factory. And that's what the story is about the people in my first novel. The characters go into the second novel. So what I did is I took the scissors and I put it on a white background and I got a roll of thread. And I said to myself, okay, how can I make it look like blood? So the first thing I did is I went into my refrigerator and got out a container of sauce, tomato sauce, which is in the recipes in my magazine. So I looked at it, it's too red, took out some ketchup, mixed it, still too red. I even considered cutting my finger for the blood. I said, no, I'm not going to see what else I can do. So I took out watercolors. And in the watercolors, there was this black, really dark color. I took a tiny, tiny bit in my brush and I put it in the watercolor and I poured and I aimed the brush into the sauce and I threw it in there, just a tad, and then I mixed it. And that's the color it came out.
Oh, wow.
So that's a history
That's
of
interesting.
how I made the blood for the cover of my magazine and how I did this. Now I know it looks very creepy, and it's supposed to some degree, but you have to read the story and understand where the scissors and the pull of thread come in. I think it's an amazing story, and I think anyone who sees this cover, don't be afraid of it. Read the story because it's the continuation of my first novel.
Yeah, and I'll certainly put the links out there. So before we go, how if somebody wants the magazine, how would they get the magazine if they want the recipes?
They can send me a check for $12.50, and I'll give you my address. My name is Mary B. Patterson. It's 1711, and I will spell this out to you. Dryden Way, Dryden, second word way, WAY. Crofton, Crofton, MD, 21114. Or they can buy it online, but it's not the paper. The only person you can get the paper from is me, but you can get online. And if you like, I can send you a link and you can send it out to your viewers. If
Yeah,
that
that's
makes,
great. I'll put the address at the bottom of the screen, and then I'll put the
I'm
link on
sorry,
the
say that
blog. So
again,
people, I said I'll put the address at the bottom of the screen,
okay.
and then I'll put the link in there too, and also on the blog post, so everybody can find it.
Yeah, so I can send you the link, and then you can put it at the bottom of your screen, and if they would prefer, because, you know, right now things are getting a little, tight money-wise, and if they want my recipes, they can go and get it in the website. They don't have to buy a copy, but the only person you get a paper copy is from me.
Okay, great, great. Well, listen, I appreciate you taking the time. This was fun as always. And, if people want to learn how to roll out that pasta nice and thin, get the magazine.
Yes, and let me say that the rolling pin that I use, my husband went to the hardware store and he told them what he wanted, and they cut out the rolling pin for me.
Yeah,
They
the
want to know
dowel.
how to
Yep.
do that. Okay,
All right,
it's
Mary,
great
thanks.
talking to you, Bob. Thank you so much. I hope we get to do this again.
Yep, me too. Take care.